I was going through school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I'll be honest. While aviation was something I thought about, it wasn't. I honestly didn't decide until my senior year of high school that that's exactly what I wanted to do. In high school, through the EFE program, I was able to do aviation technology, and I took that for 2 years. And they were out at the local air museum, and I loved it. I got to learn how to rivet, which is like basically squeezing two pieces of metal together to make them stay together. And I got to make my own toolbox that way, and a couple other. I got to I made like a section of a wing. That was cool. Like I made like wooden spars and fabric covered it and everything. It was probably the coolest thing that we did in that course. And then I got to talk to industry professionals through that. So I was able to do some job shadows and really see kind of where I wanted to go in terms of my career, to become an airframe and power plant technician and an AMT, an aircraft mechanic, essentially. You have to pass a certificate. You have to pass multiple certification tests for those to be able to sign off on things and make an aircraft airworthy and able to fly, essentially. So to do that, you have to go through a series of training. So there's three options, I suppose. You have a university route, which is typically about 4 years. You have a technical school route, which is normally about 1.5 to 2, and then you have an apprenticeship, which is pretty much entirely on-the-job training. I'm at Western Michigan University, so they offer a 4-year degree program called Aviation Technical Operations. So I'm getting a bachelor's degree, but I'm also getting all the knowledge I need to be able to take those certifications. So the main part of my job is I shadow and assist in maintenance on the aircraft with the technicians that work there. There's a lot of tire changes or visual inspections of things to make sure that they're good, they're not broken. In the aircraft, there's a lot of what we call avionics. So it's the aircraft electronics, a lot of navigation and radios and things to make it so the pilot can fly, essentially. It's a big computer. That's what an aircraft is these days. It's a large computer, and you're trying to troubleshoot what's wrong with it. A lot of what my job is seeing a problem and having to figure out how to fix it without being able to just watch it. My job is to make sure that aircraft is safe for passengers to fly in. And that can be, sometimes it weighs, because you're like, oh boy, what if I make a mistake and the plane malfunctions, But it feels like a big responsibility, but at the end of the day, you're not the only one with your hands on it. You're not the only one. You're sharing load in terms. You're sharing responsibility of the aircraft. Mechanics have their jobs. The pilots have their jobs. The flight attendants have their jobs. The people boarding you have their jobs. Everybody has a job to make sure that aircraft is safe, ready to fly, and make sure that you go up and go down safely. I've always loved to work with my hands. I take things apart and put them back together again. Whenever I'm sitting in school, I'm taking my pens apart, putting them back together again, and fiddling with things. And so I've always been interested in building, and I never really wanted to sit behind a desk for the rest of my career. I've known that from a young age. I've always wanted to be on my feet and moving, and that sort of thing. I've always loved the thought of fixing things and solving troubleshooting and solving problems like that. That's always been something I've been interested in, and if there's a problem, I like to fix it. I was very into the language arts in English, and that's helped me immensely when it comes to my career. When you wouldn't think that, because it's just a very technical career, but I'm looking at maintenance manuals all of the time, and a lot of that, they're written very technically and in a way that it's sometimes difficult to interpret. So it's very much, I'm looking at the words on the page, a diagram they provide, and I'm looking at the aircraft in front of me and going, how do these connect together? And so a lot of that is critical thinking through, all right, let's comprehend what I'm looking at, look at this diagram, look at the words that's on that page and what it's saying, and then applying that to the aircraft. Math that I learned from school applies a lot to my job. There's a lot of calculations you have to do for like weight and balance of an aircraft, or when a pilot is going to do a fuel load, they need to know how much fuel is able to be on the aircraft and where it needs to be and that sort of thing. So you have to know that knowledge too. So a lot of a lot of adding, subtracting. Sometimes it's very basic math, and that's something that you just got to have down. Sometimes taking from a blueprint and fabricating or creating a piece of like metal. A lot of that is, all right, I gotta know my measurements. I gotta know a lot of triangles. So many triangles. I use science every day. I took physics or earth science and physical science like that, and a lot of that plays into aviation. Aviation is very relies a lot on the weather. So knowing like what type of clouds are in the sky, what that rain's doing, where the ice is forming up there, because ice is very detrimental to aircraft. To anyone that wants to go into a career that may surprise people, be excited for that, because somebody's going to look at you and they're going to go, "You're doing that?" And you can go, "Yeah." And then you can start talking about it and explaining, I didn't realize that aircraft maintenance was, this was a career that you could do.